The year is 2007. You've had your trusty Nintendo DS for a year now, and have played most of the Mario games, such as New Super Mario Bros. And Mario Kart DS, but you've never played an RPG before. On a warm day in the summer, you go up to your local GameStop and are looking for a new Mario game to add to your DS collection. You go to the Game Boy Advance section and see a game pack in a display case, bundled in between seemingly endless other games. The game pack is Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. The moment you get home, you rush to your favorite spot on the couch, put the game in your DS, and experience one of the most unique games in the Mario series, an experience of an entirely new genre of games, the RPG. Now, most of you have played a Mario and Luigi game before, but have you ever thought about the company that made it and where they are today? Sit back and relax. My name is Taylor, and join me as we go through the history of Mario and Luigi. The company behind the series, AlphaDream, was founded on January 12, 2000 by Tetsuo Mizuno in Tokyo, Japan. Many of the company's staff formerly worked at Square, which you may recognize as making the Final Fantasy series, but most importantly for our purposes, they made Super Mario RPG, Legend of the Seven Stars, the precursor to every RPG with Mario likeness. At the E3 convention in 2003, Nintendo revealed to the public a new game developed by AlphaDream, then simply called Mario and Luigi. The game would later be known as Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, and was directed by Yoshihiko Maekawa, with the legendary Shigeru Miyamoto and Satoru Iwata as producers, with composer Yoko Shimomura, known for working on the Kingdom Hearts soundtrack. Inspired by the much-loved Paper Mario on the Nintendo 64, the then-titled Mario and Luigi was a turn-based RPG that took beloved characters from the series and put them in a new setting called Bean Bean Kingdom. A demo was available at the E3 convention to give people the chance to test the game a little. Overall, the demo was well appreciated as it properly introduced the brand new gameplay mechanics. The player would navigate through this new kingdom while controlling not only Mario, but also his brother Luigi. This dual protagonist approach unlocked numerous new gameplay opportunities. For example, when navigating the overworld, each brother was assigned a jumping button, A for Mario and B for Luigi. This allowed for new puzzles where timing each brother's jump was necessary to complete. There was also a mechanic where one brother would be on the other's shoulders, which gave the player a higher reach. It also enabled the brothers to fly, much like a helicopter would. Battles were reminiscent of Paper Mario 64, with their presentation, showing the options to jump, use the hammer, using the held item, or to flee. The games also shared this small mini-game system for each attack, where the player would need to press a button at the right time to maximize their damage output. However, Mario and Luigi's combat wasn't a carbon copy of Paper Mario 64, as it implemented the dual protagonist approach, even in battles. When attacked, the player would need to press each brother's jumping or hammer button at the right time to avoid getting hit. On the offensive end, Mario and Luigi introduced the Bros attack, which were special attacks whose minigame involved the two brothers, time the inputs right, and the attack would be stronger. The game's story, while more serious than a typical Mario game, still had a light-hearted tone and was full of humor. It introduced new characters to the series and more fully developed the existing characters, such as Bowser. As part of its promotional campaign, a knock-knock joke contest was held on the game's official website. Amateur comedians could send in their own joke, and each week the jokes could be chosen to advance. The semi-finalists would receive a Game Boy SP alongside a copy of the game. The grand winner, which was selected by comedian Kathy Griffin, won a huge list of prizes, which include a GameCube, 3 GameCube games such as Wario World, Mario Golf, and F-Zero GX, 3 Game Boy Advance games including Pokemon Pinball, Super Mario Advance 4, and Donkey Kong Country, a Game Boy player, a GameCube Game Boy Advance cable, a 251 MB memory card, a GameCube messenger bag, and a year's worth of comedy writing classes at the Writers' Village in New York City. The joke that won it all was the following. Knock knock. Who's there? Pencil. Pencil who? Your pencil fall down if you don't wear a belt. Absolute comedic genius. Jokes aside, Superstar Saga found its way into the hands of many players and was critically acclaimed and received excellent ratings from IGN, Eurogamer, and Game Informer, averaging a 9 out of 10 rating. It was still met with some criticism, however. GameSpy criticized the game's lack of originality, saying, "In terms of gameplay, there isn't much there that we haven't seen in the NES and SNES Mario and Zelda titles." The game was also heavily criticized for being too easy, as it was, in fact, targeted at a younger audience, though this accessibility was sometimes seen as a good thing. Some reviewers also struggled with the overhead perspective, making some of the jumping a bit harder to achieve. Nevertheless, Superstar Saga sold 441,000 units in Japan and 1.46 million in the United States. It earned $30 million in America alone, and from January 2000 to August 2006 was the 14th best-selling game released on Game Boy Advance, Nintendo DS, or PlayStation Portable. Needless to say, Mario and Luigi was a tremendous success for AlphaDream. AlphaDream unveiled their next project to the public at E3 2005 in Mario and Luigi, Partners in Time for the Nintendo DS, a play on the phrase, partners in crime. Like in 2003, there was a demo available to the public, which allowed players to play 3 levels of varying difficulty. Before the game's release, Nintendo of America released a fact sheet which revealed some new information regarding the game, such as the Bros. Items feature an overview of the game's plot. Nintendo also confirmed that the game would make use of the Rumble Pack accessory. The Rumble Pack was a removable device that attached to the controller that would vibrate at certain points during gameplay to give a greater sense of immersion to the player. Like the game's name suggests, time travel was an essential part of Partners in Time, as it made playable baby versions of Mario and Luigi. With now 4 playable characters and a brand new system, new gameplay elements were added. The top screen of the DS would display a map, while the bottom screen showed the protagonists in the overworld. The brothers and their baby versions were generally together, but certain puzzles would require the player to separate them into pairs. In this state, the top screen will display the babies and the bottom the adults. This allowed for instances where the player would need to individually control the 2 pairs to solve a puzzle. The battles stayed relatively the same, still featuring the timing-based mini-games to execute attacks. Partners in Time introduced the special Bros attack, items which are special items that can only be used when at least 2 characters are alive. These items would be used to inflict damage on one or multiple enemies at the same time. When it comes to the story, Partners in Time was actually a prequel-sequel to Superstar Saga, even though the games were largely unrelated. Unlike its predecessor, Partners in Time was set in the Mushroom Kingdom, but added some new locations to it, like the Koopa Museum. The story is about Mario and Luigi teaming up with their baby selves to save the Princess Peach from a group of aliens called the Shroobs. Throughout their journey, the 4 protagonists go through time holes to switch back and forth between the past and the future. The game's story, while still telling funny dialogue, was noticeably darker in tone than Superstar Saga. Mario and Luigi Partners in Time is a rare instance of the North American version releasing before the Japanese one. North America saw the game release on November 28, 2005, while Japan had to wait a month and a day later, on December 29, 2005. Europe saw its release on January 26, 2006. Partners in Time was well received among gamers, averaging an 8 out of 10 score. Reviewers loved the game's humor, presentation, and use of the second screen, but found controlling the 4 characters difficult. The game sold 1.3 worldwide, according to IGN. AlphaDream had found a gem in the Mario and Luigi series, with both games doing well critically and commercially worldwide. It was then with great anticipation that the company unveiled the 3rd installment in the series at Nintendo's Tokyo Press event in October 2008. At the time, the game was simply named Mario and Luigi RPG 3, and with only a few things about the story and gameplay was unveiled. Fans would have to wait until E3 2009 for the game's official English title to be revealed as Mario and Luigi: Bowser's Inside Story, with a planned European and North American release for fall of that year. An inside story refers to a story told from the perspective of someone who was actually present, making their story usually the truth. The title is, however, literal because the story takes place inside Bowser. In the French, Italian, and Spanish versions of the game, the title is translated to Journey to the Center of Bowser, a reference to the novel Journey to the Center of the Earth. Previously, Partners in Time's 4 playable characters was one of the things that made it feel new and different from Superstar Saga. This new entry would once again shake things up big time by giving Mario's archenemy a bigger role than he ever had before. Bowser, the iconic King of the Koopas, was now not only a playable character with his own moveset and controls, but as said previously, a huge chunk of the game happens inside of his body. Similar to the sections where the brothers would be separated from their younger selves in Partners in Time, the player would alternate between controlling Bowser in the Mushroom Kingdom and controlling the Mario brothers in Bowser's body. Numerous puzzles would require changing something inside of Bowser to allow him to progress in the real world. The addition of Bowser altered the battle system with the setting. The king fought using his fists and his fire breath, with the same timing-based minigames the series is known for. However, Bowser introduced a new mechanic in his ability to inhale his enemies. This resulted in that particular enemy getting sent all the way inside of Bowser, where the plumbers would defeat it using their jumping and hammers. Giant battles would also occasionally happen, where the player would turn their DS sideways and control a giant Bowser by either interacting with the screen to punch and defend, or by blowing on the microphone to breathe fire. The story was way wackier than its predecessor, as its premise was that Bowser was tricked by Fawful to eat a special mushroom that made him inhale everything around. This includes the Mario Brothers and Princess Peach. While all this was happening, the Mushroom Kingdom was struck by a blorb epidemic, which made everyone inflate and simply roll all over the place. Bowser's Inside Story is considered to be one, if not the best Mario RPG ever made. Its first American critic, Nintendo Power, gave it a 9.5/10 rating and called it the best RPG-style Mario adventure ever made. Many critics, such as IGN, Game Daily, GameSpot, and Giant Bomb, gave the game high ratings of 9/10 and 10/10. Giant Bomb even named it the best DS game of the year. The humor and refined gameplay were loved around the globe, alongside the story written as usual by Hiroyuki Kubota. Only a cameo in the last game, the reintroduction of fan favorite Fawful as the main villain, was also applauded by the gaming community. Of course, it is impossible to forget Bowser and all the changes he brought to the gameplay. All in all, the game was seen as a breath of fresh air for many fans of the Mario series. To coincide with such great reception, Bowser's Inside Story went on to sell almost 4 million copies worldwide, making it the best-selling RPG in the Mario and Luigi series. AlphaDream had remained inactive publicly for 4 years after the release. This silence was ultimately broken at E3 in 2013 with the announcement of the next installment of the Mario and Luigi franchise, Mario and Luigi Dream Team. AlphaDream utilized their patented talents for storytelling and cohesive and interactive gameplay to create a worthy installment in the franchise. This entry's premise is fairly standard. Princess Peach gets captured by Bowser. A new antagonist, named Antasma, along with the Mario brothers, now have to travel to a new location, Pielo Island, in order to save her. Dream Team was released during the Year of Luigi, a celebration of 30 years of Mario's brother. As such, our Green Plumber's role was greatly expanded in this new entry, with the game's primary new feature, the Dream World being created from his own dreams. Due to this, many of the Dream World's mechanics are centered around Luigi. As the series' first entry on the 3DS, Dream Team is also the first game to set aside the 2D sprites to opt for 3D models. While the gameplay stays relatively the same across the board, the Dream World offers a couple of new interesting features. Since the dream world is created from Luigi's dream, Mario is accompanied by a version of his brother within his dreams called Dreamy Luigi. Dreamy Luigi has the ability to activate the Luiginary works, objects that are scattered all over the dream world. While Dreamy Luigi possesses the Luiginary work, in the real world, Starlo, a character that was introduced in the previous game, has to play with Luigi's body in order to affect his own dream world. For example, the Luiginary starch tree is controlled by Starlo pulling on the sleeping Luigi's mustache. The tree then acts as a slingshot for Mario inside the dream world. Another Luiginary work is the sneeze wind, which creates a strong gust of wind whenever the real Luigi sneezes. In battle, Dreamy Luigi is not directly playable contrary to his normal self. He instead fuses into Mario and gives him a boost in his HP and BP, 50% and 20% respectively. With his help, Mario can summon Luiginoids, which are copies of Dreamy Luigi that can take a variety of different formations, like the Luiginary Ball or the Luiginary Typhoon. In times of crises, Dreamy Luigi can also summon a multitude of Luiginoids to create a giant Luigi that plays similarly to Giant Bowser in the previous game. Though well received, the game came under criticism for its overabundance of tutorials and lack of pacing in its story development. This was a small blip comparatively, as story and gameplay was largely enjoyed as a whole. Metacritic, IGN, GameSpot, and Common Sense Media ranked it with an 8.1/10. Common Sense Media, however, gave it a perfect 5/5 review. This game took to refurbishing the gameplay from its predecessor and introduced the iconic Phantasma, a bat which feeds on nightmares like a vampire to blood. His overall look and mannerisms were based around old-school Dracula performances from Christopher Lee and Bela Lugosi. The game offers some tough-as-nails boss fights with the Mario and Luigi charm we've all grown to expect from AlphaDream. The humor remained on point throughout and has been praised to this day in nearly all reviews. The same charm, its predecessors, has made fans of the franchise accustomed to it and therefore familiar. As the game progresses, it finds a much more comfortable pace and offers a harrowing soundtrack that amplifies the intensity of each boss fight and new enemy interaction. Ultimately, this was an acceptable, fully engaging addition to the spotless franchise. For their next game, AlphaDream, once again, wanted to add another character to join Mario and Luigi on their journey. After some brainstorming, they decided to go with the lo-fi Paper Mario, which led to the crossover that is the fifth game of the series, Mario and Luigi Paper Jam. The developers held a Q&A on Miiverse, where they revealed some pretty interesting tidbits about the game's development. For example, Paper Luigi was initially considered as a playable character. However, the team thought that having to control 4 characters, like in Partners in Time, would be too difficult. The story went through numerous revisions. Most notably, the original premise was that the Mario brothers would alternate between the Mushroom Kingdom and the Paper World. However, the developers thought that it made the story too complicated to enjoy. So it was decided to simplify the story and put more emphasis on the characters' interaction. When asked about what was the trickiest part about bringing those two sets of series together, the director Shunsuke Kobayashi explained, "It was probably making the most of Paper Mario as a main character. He has specific qualities, like his paperishness and unique gameplay style, and we had to find ways to show these qualities in lots of different settings, in a manner that was fitting for this crossover." The gameplay was altered to fit Paper Mario and his paperness, allowing him to turn into a paper plane or squeeze through narrow spaces in the overworld. In battles, Paper Mario could make copies of himself to attack multiple enemies at once. Trio attacks were introduced, and they required the player to control the 3 protagonists to dish out a powerful attack. Paper Jam was decently received, not as well as the previous games, though it still managed to grab ratings of 8/10 from Game Informer, Destructoid, and Nintendo Life. The usual stuff was praised: the music, humor, and gameplay, but also the decrease of tutorials that had plagued the former Dream Team game. Most of the criticisms were directed at the story being too simple, and the game in general not taking as many risks compared to previous titles. Miguel Concepcion from GameSpot said it best: As a crossover that is already intriguing based on concept alone, it's hard to blame Nintendo for playing it safe and predictable in its execution. Undeniably adorable but bereft of genuine surprises or innovation. To go with these reviews, in its first few days, the game sold 50,000 copies, which equals roughly 18% of the initial shipment. For worldwide sales, we found that Paper Jam sold around 1 million copies. These are respectable numbers, but definitely lacking compared to Bowser's Inside Story. During the Nintendo Treehouse of E3 2017, a remake of Superstar Saga, titled Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga plus Bowser's Minions, was announced. This remake updated the graphics to mirror the style of the previous 3DS titles, featured a remastered soundtrack, and added some quality-of-life improvements, like being able to save anywhere. The only real new content was Minion Quest, the new side story featuring Bowser's minions in their search for their king. The battles are automatic fights between two armies, with the player being able to select which characters to send beforehand. There are 3 types of fighters: melee, ranged, and flying, using a rock-paper-scissors system to determine which fighter has the advantage. Melee beats ranged, but is weak against flying. Ranged beats flying, but is weak to melee, and flying beats melee, but is weak to ranged. This remake was well received, as it was the same Superstar Saga people knew and had come to love, but with the addition of upgraded graphics and minor gameplay improvements. Minion Quest also wasn't the huge success Nintendo wanted it to be, with Polygon even calling it a bust on their review of the game. According to VG Charts, Superstar Saga is the first game in the series to not hit 1 million, sitting at around 510,000 sales worldwide, and a disappointing 80,000 sales in Japan. Seeing how little the Superstar Saga remake sold, AlphaDream was left in a bit of a predicament. Fortunately for them, they leaned on the old reliable strategy of remake your best-selling game. With much anticipation, in March of 2018, AlphaDream announced Mario and Luigi, Bowser's Inside Story, plus Bowser Jr.'s Journey. The game was released on December 28, 2018 in Japan, with the additional worldwide release the following month of January. Like Superstar Saga's remake, this one updated the graphics, remastered the music, and enhanced the giant battles. The new side story Bowser Jr.'s Journey was similar to Minion Quest with few changes and quality-of-life upgrades. The game was well received critically, as it simply polished what was already considered the best game in the series. Frustratingly, however, the game sold horribly. It sold under 9,500 copies in Japan in the first week, and disappeared from the top 20 charts by the second week. While it did release late in the 3DS's lifetime, comparing it to Luigi's Mansion and Captain Toad Treasure Trackers, which both released around that time frame, paints the ever bleaker image. Luigi's Mansion only sold 27,000 copies and Captain Toad 20,547 copies, according to Nintendo Life and Gematsu, respectively. Famitsu's sales tracker recorded that the game sold 20,768 units in total, which makes it one of the worst-selling Mario games in the franchise's history. How ironic is it that the remake of the best-selling Mario RPG would be one of the worst-selling games in the whole series? This was the straw that broke the camel's back. After a string of releases which couldn't quite replicate the successes of Bowser's Inside Story, AlphaDream filed for bankruptcy on October 1, 2019. According to Gematsu, the company recorded 300 million yen annually in the fiscal year that ended in March 2014. However, the poor sales of the recent games, especially the remakes, were not able to make up for the constantly increasing development costs. According to a Yahoo Japan article detailing the situation, in March of 2018, AlphaDream had around 465 million yen in debt. With no improvements in sight, the company had no choice but to file for bankruptcy. This news saddened global fans of the series, and many wondered what would become of the series. AlphaDream's demise had dashed all hopes for any further game releases, and so Mario and Luigi would lay dormant for 5 years. Then, during the Nintendo Direct of June 2024, good news arrived. A brand new Mario and Luigi was announced, and it was not a remake, but a full-fledged new adventure game titled Mario and Luigi Brothership, released on November 7, 2024. The new title was being developed by Acquire Corp, who worked on the Way of the Samurai series, Akiba Trip, and both of the Octopath Traveler games. This game is the very first in the series to be released on home consoles, and as such features fully 3D environments. The highlight of new gameplay uses the addition of the Luigi logic feature, which the player will have to use to solve the overworld puzzles that will hinder their progress. It also happens to be the very first game to feature Kevin Afghani as Mario, and Luigi's new voice actor, replacing the legendary Charles Martinet. While the game just came out, and we don't know what its legacy will be, so far it has gotten some mixed reviews. Some people loving this return to a classic series, and others thinking it falls flat. Even if this isn't the best game in the series, it has given a lot of hope to fans of the series that Mario and Luigi still have more adventures to come. To conclude our grand journey with you, the Mario and Luigi series has come an incredibly long way since its inception. With nearly the same employees and management for more than 2 decades, the Mario and Luigi series has managed to stay fresh and new while keeping the tight gameplay. The hilarious dialogue and adorable characters it's known and loved for has kept generations of gamers coming back. However, as the cost of developing games grew, the company had to play it safe to guarantee a profit. It is likely why Paper Jam felt so safe, and why they decided to cash in on past successes with consistent remakes. Ultimately, though, they were not able to save themselves from sinking deeper and deeper into debt and closing shop. And while AlphaDream had a particular touch that made these games feel special for millions of gamers, one can only hope that Acquire's rendition of the series will capture that same sparkle of magic. We thank you all for watching this documentary. We also have a documentary about the Metroid series available on our channel. If you enjoyed this, please like the video, share, and of course, subscribe, as these videos take a lot of time to make, so we can see if you want to see more documentaries. This has been Taylor with Game Domain.